It is such an honor to have Professor Krisler Bailey on the Professor on Your Side podcast. Professor Krisler Bailey and I spoke on my Literacy Landscapes podcast, and I am beaming with joy to have you on this one. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk with you again.
I know when we did our initial talk, I was like, we need to have a part two. And I'm just so joyful. And you're doing really meaningful and impactful work. And it'd be really helpful if you want to share with our audience kind of a little bit about what brings you to the work you do in terms of being an academic, a student coach, and supporting students and having such an eye for helping students navigate these executive functioning challenges and all the good things. So, what brings you to this space?
Gosh, both personal experience and professional experience. So, personally, I struggled in college my first couple of years. It looks like two different, completely, just different students. My first 2 years on my transcript versus my second 2 years on my transcript. I come from a well educated family, but I was not ready for college. And so, just from that personal struggle, I can understand what
Yeah.
students are dealing with. But also professionally, I'm in my 24th year in higher education. I started teaching developmental reading and developmental writing, which was humbling because I had no idea that there were students in college that were reading on a fifth, sixth, seventh grade level. That just did not
Yeah.
even come into my mind. So that kind of started me down the path of learning what some of these students are struggling with. Mostly, I've taught intro to sociology and some of the lower level sociology classes. So I spend a lot of time with freshmen,
Mhm.
and those precious children, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
they struggle a lot,
Mhm.
and I just got to the point where I was like, "I'm tired of seeing the same challenges. I'm tired of the gaps." And so I just wanted to be the person to stand in that gap and help bridge them from where they're at right now and just make their transition into college, a lot smoother.
Yeah, I echo that. And I feel on so many levels, the past few years, I taught college freshmen as well. And also had a son who started college. Now he's a junior, knock on all surfaces. Thank goodness he's doing well. But that first transition, it was a really, it was a big leap. And there were a lot of unintended things that I didn't anticipate. I talk all the time about how I spent all of this time on getting his dorm room looking perfect and not realizing there were a lot of other things I should have spent more time on
Yeah.
that I realized a little, much later than maybe I should have. So, our students, I think our students in particular now have even more diverse needs, more complex landscape in terms of the educational terrain, and need a lot of support, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You see all kinds of students from all kinds of backgrounds. They're native to the US, they're international students, they are first generation, they are many generations down the line educated. It doesn't matter. They're struggling with something. And, you know, I had a lady who commented one time on a post saying, aren't they supposed to struggle? Is struggling bad? And struggle is not bad. The problem is that before they've gotten to college, they haven't been really allowed to struggle. They've been bubble wrapped, they've been protected, they've been extra credited all the way until they get the A. They've been given a million chances. They've never scraped a knee, they've never bumped an elbow, they've never had these opportunities or maybe very minimal. And so when they get to college and they have all this freedom, then they are deer in headlights, they are extra stressed, they don't know how to handle anxiety, they don't know how to ask questions. So, I think that's a big part of their struggle.
Absolutely. And it's almost like I refer to it almost like a muscle, right? We can build these muscles, even something like knowing how to study for a test,
Mhm.
to study for an exam, even understanding of the level of preparation that's needed to go into preparing for a biology exam, for
Mhm.
example, or a history exam, and being able to estimate that and then manage the time as well. And then understanding yourself as a learner and how you learn best. I remember myself, I sometimes struggled with memorizing a lot of facts and just reading notes. I took great notes, but just reading them didn't help me when it came time to the exam. Realizing I learn differently and prepare differently was something
Yeah.
I learned about myself as a student as well.
Yeah. Yeah. My struggle at the beginning was taking notes. I
Mhm.
did not know how to take notes efficiently. I couldn't really follow what was happening in class.
Yeah.
And now I'm a note taker all the time.
Mhm.
You hardly find me without a pencil and a piece of paper.
I'm the same way. I also encourage my students to always have something to write in because it can really support you and be that additional executive functioning support. Like, I'm not going to remember. I'm going to think I'm going to remember what was told to me. I'm going to lie to myself and say, yeah, I'll remember that. And I guarantee 1 hour, 2 hours later, I will forget what it was. And so being able to jot it down is really helpful. Helping our students to understand that is vital. There's so much they're learning about themselves as
Mhm.
learners, as people, as community members in college, all the things. What do you think in your experience with college teaching and coaching students? What are some of the things that you think are the biggest executive functioning? I don't want to call them shock points, but most surprising aha moments for some of our students along these lines.
I think one of the biggest struggles is now that they have all this unstructured
Mhm.
time, they don't know what to do with their day. And, it's especially hard for students who maybe were so filled with activities in their grade school life. And now they're no longer in the sport. They're no longer in band. They're no longer in the clubs and the organizations that filled their afternoons and evenings.
Yeah.
So now what do I do with that time? And, a lot of them will say, well, I really do want to work out, but I don't know when I'm going to do it. Or I really do want to be a part of clubs, but I'm not sure when to act upon that or when to go or if it's a good time to be a part of them in the evening. Like they
Mhm.
don't know because they've never had so much unstructured time being, they just don't know how to be.
Yeah.
They always have to be doing something. So they think I have to fill my time with XYZ. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, you could literally just put your phone in your bag
Yes.
and just roam around campus for 15 minutes.
Yes. Oh,
Like,
please.
you don't have to be on, you don't have to be doing something. This semester, I'm also teaching Introduction to University Life, which is sort of our our college 101, type class. And I could sort of feel the atmosphere shifting for all of my students, for my
Mhm.
intro and my university life students, at a point in the semester. And I was like, you know what? This day, we are going to put away the content
Ah,
and I'm going to just let you work on whatever you need to work on. I said, I just feel like everybody's at this point of anxiety that we had just finished talking about advising and registering for classes and
mhm.
to pick classes. And so they're trying to figure all of that out. And they still had a lot of questions and they're trying to finish assignments. And I said, you know what? And if all
Mhm.
you need to do right now in this time is just leave your stuff in the room and go walk around campus for 10 or 15 minutes, then that's what your assignment is for today. They were stiffening up, they were getting real anxious. They had sort of hit that wall, mid-semester wall. And I think they were like, well, I don't want to do that because I'm not doing something. And I'm like, no, no, no,
Mhm.
no. You are doing something. You're letting your brain and your body rest, which is necessary for both your physical and mental health. So I think those types of things are things that they've never been exposed to, or they
Mm.
don't really truly understand how those things benefit them and how to work the unstructured time. So I think that's a big area that needs some help.
That's a huge one. I've also seen it at the high school level and coaching my high school students. where sometimes they're also overscheduled. And so they have so many other things that they're doing. They're student athletes, they are in clubs, and then they're also trying to manage, well, when am I going to carve out the time to do my AP classes and all of these things? It's a balance. But what I really love that you shared is like find those moments to take things down a notch. Like
Mhm.
find that downtime because we're in a go, go, go culture. Social media and always being like just we're constantly in this frame where we have to do and we're being exposed to information. We kind of forget to just take a walk, breathe, take a walk. Some of those basic things like Maslow, right? Just like
Mhm.
let's take it down and reconnect with ourselves, I think is so important.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. So what can along these lines, now that and particularly working with freshmen, I'm always thinking like, how can we help our high schoolers to develop those muscles before they get to college? What are some things that you think might be helpful?
I think modeling that is
Yeah.
helpful. When you start to get anxious and stressed out, there's things going on in your life. Being open, you don't necessarily have to, depending on the age of your kids, of course, but you don't necessarily have to tell your kids everything that's going on. But saying, I'm really stressed today and I think I need to take a break. Or, showing that you're drinking your water, even though it's not your favorite thing to do. Or,
Yeah.
having a family meal together. And maybe you can't do it 7 nights a week, but maybe you can do it 3 nights a week.
Mhm.
Just modeling that for your kids can be really helpful. They like when we're honest with them. They like when we are not pretentious and
Mhm.
try to show that we
Yeah.
know it all and we have it all together, because we don't. We're human beings just like they are.
Yes.
I also think, for parents, just being really curious about your kids. When they say, "Oh, this is horrible," you can say, "Well, what do you mean by that? What's horrible? Why is it horrible? Who says it's horrible? When did it become horrible?
Mhm.
Have you always not like this?
Mhm.
And you're just realized, or I'm just realizing this, or I'm just hearing it." Getting curious and just letting them talk. We like to share how much we know. And yes, we do know a lot because we've been, through things and seen things and had experiences and whatnot. But they're not completely, clueless. Maybe on some things they are, but, they've had a
Mhm.
little bit of experience, and letting them sort of learn how to talk through those things and feel the feelings. And when they are feeling down about something, let them feel it.
Yes.
It's okay to let them feel like crap because they didn't get a good grade or because they missed the goal in the soccer game. Don't dismiss those things,
Yes.
because those are moments where we can have deeper conversations, and it may not happen right that second. But if we continue to model those behaviors, if we continue to be curious, if we continue to be open, then eventually it'll start happening in a way that is really meaningful, instead of us trying to shoehorn a conversation, right? Instead of us trying to make them follow the direction or make them go in a particular way. So I think those are some things that we can do to help our kids.
That is so powerful. I'm just taking a moment because I never thought about it like framed as like shoehorning a conversation. And I think as a mom myself, I often want to solve the problem and tie it all into a bow. And sometimes it's more complicated than that. And pushing against that urge for the perfect resolution immediately, right? And giving ourselves that grace and having those moments of opportunity to open the conversation and not, and I just wow, that just really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I tried to have a conversation with my son about his eating habits.
Mm,
And I just worry about him because it's not just about him eating junk, but he
mhm,
just, seems to have weird eating patterns.
mm,
And so we were talking about it, and I was like, so, if you could make whatever you wanted for dinner, what would you make? And what do you like to eat? And just trying to sort of get into his teenage brain. And eventually he was like, okay, so are we done now? And actually before that, he said, why are you so worried about this?
Huh.
And I was like, well, because I'm your mom and I want to make sure that you're okay and, that you're feeling well and that you're eating as much as you need and,
Yeah.
that you're growing properly. It's kind of what I do. And so then he was like, okay, well, are we done with this conversation? And I was like, okay, I guess we are. Because as much as I wanted to continue talking about it and come to some solution to the problem, and
Yeah.
when they're not in it, it's going to be really hard to move towards what we think is the solution for the problem. So, that wasn't the last we've ever talked about it. It's been, here and there we've had conversations. And I'm fortunate that I have other health coaching friends that I can kind of go to and say, well, am I thinking about this right? Or how can I ask, lean on your village. Kids,
Yeah.
it takes a village to raise a kid, yes, but it also takes a village to be an adult.
Ooh,
So, yeah,
you're full of
so
gems today. As
yeah,
usual.
so lean on your village.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. And I couldn't agree more. I think in picking up those conversations at other times, like maybe in that moment, like it got to a certain point and you're like, okay, I'm going to take a step back. I've also sometimes found like I had moments like that with my son and sometimes I always called it car talk with mom. We'd go on a drive somewhere and then like he would open up, right? So sometimes just also finding the right environment and the right space to re-engage those conversations can be helpful too. So maybe not at the dining room table over dinner, but like maybe in another way, as the kids say, in a low-key way, we can come back to the conversation in another space. Yeah. Wow. You've just given me so much to think about. And you're right. I mean, these are big, our children, our students are dealing with big life, issues. And as adults, we also, manage and deal with challenging issues. And I think modeling it. And I love this concept of being curious. Like, let's ask questions. Maybe we don't have the exact answer, but let's talk about.
Yeah, that's probably one of the greatest things that came out of my coaching training was the curiosity piece.
Yeah.
Letting the client sort of work through things and come to their own conclusions. I've been in conversations with clients where I really haven't talked a whole lot. Like they talked and talked, and then they came to their own conclusion and they were like, yeah, you know what? I think this is what I'm going to do. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. Would you like help with implementing that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then we would move forward. It isn't that we always have to be the ones that have the answer. The answer may be inside of them. It just takes a little, question asking and letting them talk through it and letting them see and then letting them experience and then letting them fall a little bit and a little trial and error. And then it comes out.
I love that. And yes, I feel like the most effective coaching conversations are where the person you're working with has that aha moment themselves, when it really truly comes from them and you can guide them, but when it really resonates and comes from them, it's just incredibly powerful. How do you approach that when you work with students, when you're doing your college coaching? Like, how does that, what might that look like when you're working with a student who's, for example, struggling with like procrastinating on assignments? How might that work?
Yeah, of course, that's a big one. We know students
Yeah.
struggle with that, doing things at the last minute.
Yeah.
When I start coaching, I start with a time where I just get to know them. And so I ask them questions, probably things they aren't expecting me to ask, because I don't always just ask about school stuff. I ask about their family and their siblings and how they get along with their siblings and if their siblings went to college and what that experience was like. And, I ask them what they do in their free time, just conversation, just getting to know them, because I get to learn a lot about just who they are and what their thinking has been in the past. I also ask them a lot about their high school experience because that is very telling about why they're in the predicament that they're in right now. For example, I've been working with a young lady who was on academic probation last year. She's working to get off of it, and she's submitted all of her documentation and paperwork to be reinstated. And so she's kind of in a holding pattern waiting. When I talked with her, she told me, that her high school experience was one where no one really was allowed to fail. So they got lots of chances over and over. They could redo assignments, they could turn stuff in late, all the things. And so when she got to college, she was not expecting that. And so she didn't really have the skills to complete her work well on time. And so that gave me some insight to now start talking to her about what does that look like to complete work on time for you? And I asked her, is there a difference between if she has to do something like preparing a presentation versus writing a paper? Because certain students are more comfortable with certain assignments. Just getting to know some of the nuances of their previous experiences and then starting to formulate a plan. A lot of times we work with a planner. I ask them, would they prefer digital or paper, because they believe that paper is best, but some students just have an aversion to it. It's like they break out into hives if I say planner to them. So, kind of letting them choose, but then helping them work through, okay, if you're going to use a paper planner, here's how maybe you want to think about choosing one. I send them some options. They choose which one they want to use. And then we go from, and it's a weekly thing every week. It's how did it go? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? What assignments did you get turned in on time? How did that feel? That's another one, is just how did it feel to get something turned in on time when your normal pattern is not, right? How did it feel for you to miss a deadline that you really wanted to get, right? Now that you have this awareness. So it's sort of getting them to see, okay, it's fun, it's exciting, it feels good to turn things in on time. I feel accomplished when I do that, and sort of celebrating that with them. And if they don't hit their target, what happened? So we navigate that. Like, was it the assignment? Did you not work on it as you planned to, or did you not actually plan, right, in your planner and get things? So what was it that kept you from hitting that goal that week? For some kids, they get it quickly. They get on the stick and they get it quickly. And then other ones, it takes them months to really get into the groove of the planning and prioritizing their assignments and thinking about how they're going to fit it in their day and, breaking those things down.
What I really love is that what I'm hearing in your approach is that you kind of look for some of the root causes. You really look under the hood in terms of figuring out what are some of the antecedents or some of the challenges that are behind the actions, right? I think that's really important, because then you can figure out, okay, so what are the best approaches to address what the outcome was and mitigate for it. And I'm with you. I love a paper planner, and I have a tendency to constantly look for the perfect one. Fun fact, I once ordered one all the way from Australia, not realizing it was in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And it took forever to get here. And then one day I got a message saying it was in customs, and I was like, where did I order this from? And it was beautiful. And sometimes they're so pretty, I don't want to write in them. So I don't know. If you found the perfect planner, please send it to me, because I'm always on the hunt, and I prefer paper as well. I do think there's a brain hand connection when it comes to making connections. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have gone through many planners myself, and it is a common question that I get, what planner should I use? Well, I don't know, because that depends on what you prefer. First, let's start with digital versus physical planner. That's the first question. And then if you use a digital planner, what kind of planner works best for you. Some people like something like Google Calendar, or they use Outlook. And the other thing is with the digital planners, what pairs well with your school and the learning management system you use. Professors are putting due dates in online and different things that you're going to have to meet them on or whatever it is, then it can be really good to have a digital calendar that pairs with that. But if you want to go with a paper planner, are you somebody who wants to see a whole week? Are you somebody who wants to see a whole month? Is a whole month overwhelming for you? Maybe you want to see a day by day. Personally, I like the day by day planner because I like to just see one day what's happening. If I miss something, I can just flip back to the previous day, but it just shows me all in one day. And so it doesn't overwhelm me for what I need to get done. So again, it's that nuance is what do you prefer? What's going to work best for you? Maybe we go through a couple of iterations of different planners before we find the one that works for you. And I just want to kind of interject this here for parents who may be listening. If you are making your kid use a planner, it's very likely that it's not going to be long term. I've learned this myself as a parent. Even somebody who uses a planner all the time, my kids see me use a planner, they know, but they are not the best at it. So I'm not going to shoehorn them into using planners. It's just not going to happen. You can suggest or maybe spend time looking at planners with your kiddo, like take them to Target or Michael's or whatever, or get online and scroll through some different ones and talk with them about the options and then let them choose which planner they want to purchase or order. Again, you making the choice for them is not allowing them to use the intelligence and the thought and the critical thinking and the problem solving skills that we want them to have. It's you being the expert, not allowing them to be the expert on themselves. It's those types of things as parents that we can do to support our kids, but not completely do it for them.
I think that's such an important point because we want the buy-in and we want it to be something that sticks. And it may not work. Like you said, I've also tried different iterations with my own students. They've tried Notion or they've tried Todoist or whatever different programs until they found the one that felt the most intuitive to them. And that's also like, that should be part of the inquiry process of figuring yourself out as a learner, what works best for you. I'm like, personally, everything I do is in my personal Google Calendar. I need everything. Like, I have one for work that's in Outlook. I have my own personal one in Google and I create notes in it. And that's the system that works for me. And I think helping your child to figure out what those systems look like is so important because it helps them to understand themselves as learners, as future professionals, and to put in systems that feel true to their needs.
Yeah. And speaking to the future professional piece, one of the things that could be helpful for them is when they go to complete a job application or they're doing an interview, they can speak to the fact that they went through this struggle, that they learned how they learn, or they learned what organization tool they needed, or they learned, that they're a digital versus a paper or whatever. They can speak to that during the interview. So we need to think beyond like this very small piece right here of this semester, these set of classes, and getting them to plan for this and think, how can we support them so that they can use these skills beyond this semester, beyond college, in their personal life, in their professional life? Like, I'm not going to be here forever. So I don't want my kids constantly. I mean, yes, I'm always going to be their mother and they can always come to me. But it's not that I want them to have the skills to be able to use them just whenever they happen to need them. So the professional piece is what people are, thinking about with their college students. Well, they got to graduate, they got to get a degree, they got to get a job. So let's start with this time, but teach them things that are going to be applicable down the road.
That was a perfect yes. And I was going to ask about supports that what families can do to gradually hand off responsibility. And I think you answered that quite beautifully. It's a small
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
one step at a time. How can you one step in terms of handing things over to your student, to your child, right?
Yeah. A big one with that could also be medical,
Hmm.
anything medical. So
Yeah.
when they head off to college, they're 18, they can make all the medical decisions. They don't have to tell you anything. Nobody has to share anything with you anymore.
Hmm.
And so a lot of parents are taken aback by that, right? Their
Yeah.
kid goes off to college, they're sick, maybe they're in the hospital. They call and the hospital's like, we can't tell you anything. Now they're
Hmm.
freaking out because
Yes.
what do I do? Right? Well, yeah. What do you do?
Yes.
Well, nothing unless you're going to fly there and demand,
Yep.
something happen. But, so maybe start letting your kid make their doctor's appointments. Now, you could be sitting in the room next to them while they're on the
Right.
telephone. And when they say, no, we don't have an appointment at this time, then you can help them figure out another time. But let them get on the phone.
Hmm.
Let them talk to the medical assistant or the nurse or whoever's taking the appointments. Let them be the one to discuss those things, right? And then when they actually go to the doctor, and even when they're little, when they go to the doctor,
Hmm.
let them say, my head hurts. That's why we're at the doctor. You can sort of train them before, talk with them before. I know you're not feeling well. I'm going to take you to the doctor. When the doctor says, why did you come in today? Then you say, because my head hurts really bad and my stomach hurts or my tummy hurts. Right? So it doesn't have to be this like
Yep.
grand thing. I think sometimes we build it up and make it so big,
Yeah.
and it can be teeny tiny things. If your kid
Hmm.
is going to dinner with you at a restaurant and they don't order their own meals, then they don't get to eat.
Ah,
Period.
love it.
Right? If they get to
Yes.
double digits
Yeah.
and they're not able to order their own food, then they can just sit there and watch you eat. And I know
Yeah.
some people out there are like, "Oh, that's harsh." Well, but eventually they're gonna be on their own and they're gonna have to order their own
Hmm.
food. Wouldn't you rather give them 8 years of practicing that
Yeah.
before you just let them go?
And you can practice those conversations before you get there, because some of our
Right.
students may have diverse learning needs or language-based differences. So practice at home, practice on the way there, give them the tools.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let them
Because
look at the online menu
yes,
and say, "Here are some things that I think you might like," or, "Take a look at this menu. What do you think you might order
yeah,
when we go?"
yes. Thank you so much. So I have two kind of big questions. One is a personal one for me because I'm a first gen student. I'm the first to go to college in this country in my family. And I'm wondering if you have any recommendations about supports you found powerful for students who are first gen students or students who may come from marginalized communities or may have a set of challenges that they need extra support with. What are your thoughts about that?
Most colleges are going to have clubs and organizations and departments that are geared towards those populations.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go it alone. There are
Yes.
other first generation students on campus. There are other commuter students. There are other minority students. And if there
Yeah.
isn't a club or organization, you be the one to start it.
I became a peer counselor
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I got that when I was a junior and a senior, and I got to help incoming freshmen. And for me, it
Yeah.
was really powerful.
When you have peers
Yeah.
that are available to even sometimes just commiserate with, just, sometimes there's struggles that nobody else would really understand.
Yeah.
And so you can all come together, you just maybe have coffee or
Yep.
meet for lunch. If it's not a formalized club,
Yeah.
that maybe you can just have a movie night or
Mhm.
whatever it might be. But connect with those other students. And a lot of learning management systems have students have the ability where they can email their classmates.
Yeah.
And so, just email your classmates and say, are there any other first generation students here, that would like to get together and start with your classmates. If you're a little bit more shy and you don't want to be in a big group, start with those folks because they're in that class and y'all have at least that thing in common. But as I mentioned, a lot of colleges have departments that support students as well.
Yeah.
Seek out those resources. It's already built into your tuition, so you might as well use them.
Yeah.
There are folks who their heart is fully invested in supporting students and supporting certain populations. So let them fill their heart's desire with supporting you.
Is there a book, a podcast, or a resource that you would recommend to teens or parents about whether it's habits or mindsets or executive functioning, anything that you think might be helpful that you'd like to share that you kind of turn to?
Yeah, actually on my website, coachingwithkrisler.com, there is a resources tab. And I have a list of books. Actually, there's two lists. There's one list that is dedicated to working with teens and young adults. And then there's another health and wellness list because I am a functional medicine certified health coach. And so there's two lists there that you can look at. But I would say one of the best books that you can start with is the book called The Self-Driven Child. It is a little convicting for parents. So just if you're somebody out there who doesn't want to learn and doesn't want to change and you don't want to help your kids, then don't read this book. But if you really do, and what I love about it is that it gives a lot of really good information. And then at the end of the chapter, it says, what do you do tonight? And it gives you a list of, maybe 10 different things that you could start with that are specific to that chapter's topic. So, if you get to the end of the chapter and you're like, oh, now I read all that stuff, what do I do? It tells you, okay, start with these things, right? So I love that book. There's so many on that list, and there's so many really great authors and support out there. If you have a student with a disability, Elizabeth Hamblett's book is really, really good as well. That's on the list. So yeah, I would take a look at that whole list and check it out and start reading.
I love it. Yeah, keep learning, right? Keep learning.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want a part 3 already. Thank you so much, Krisler. It's always so insightful and motivating to talk to you, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. I love being on here with you and having these conversations. I feel like we could probably talk for another few hours.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.